PAX West 2017 and Stop Skeletons from Fighting was there. It was again a massive event with too many games and panels to see in just 4 days. And as much as we wanted to play big marquee titles like Quake Champions, Far Cry 5, Cuphead, and Dragons, so many dragons and dinosaurs at PAX this year. What was with all the dragons and dinosaurs? But we like to prowl places like the Indie Mega Booth, where the lines are shorter and you can sample more games in less time. This is where we ended up spending most of our time, which we know is just a fraction of what's out there, but still, we found some really cool games we'd love to share with you, and we got the developers to tell us about them. UFO 50 was one of the first games we stumbled upon. It was only announced a few weeks earlier, and the concept is just amazing. I personally was really excited to see it.
How did this idea come to be? Like, UFO 50 is 50 separate games. What actually makes you want to do that? Because it sounds incredibly ambitious.
I think most people hear 50 and it's kind of shocking and bizarre. It's like, wow, why 50?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reaction we want to get. That's why it has to be so big.
And I think a lot of these are kind of like throwbacks to things that we either kind of had in the past, right? Or like that we never really got to fully explore.
Yeah. No, and it's an opportunity, like you were suggesting, to make some things that, maybe couldn't be their own game or be a little too weird or strange or difficult. And we can do some like weirder experiments and see how they go in the context of a larger collection. So it's actually very freeing as like a designer to be able to like jump between the games and push the boundaries with some weirder stuff.
There's something in there for everybody. There's going to be at least one that you might like more than others, and it's kind of like there's nothing really to lose for both us as designers or the consumers, really, because consumers are going to have, the players are going to have the opportunity to just explore 50 games and really be able to jump in and out. And I feel like
explore is like really a key word for us, because like I think a lot of the inspiration comes from being a kid. Like Derek and I would get these like floppy disks that would have like 100 games on them, and you just kind of pick a name from the list, and it's like this feeling of exploration that you get. So that's the other reason we needed it to be 50. We want to almost overwhelm people with options, so you feel like you're just exploring different avenues.
It's like finding a big toy box full of stuff and you just don't even know where to begin, so you just kind of pick whatever feels good and play with it.
Now, obviously, I can't confirm or deny the existence of these extra games. They're all meant to be not mini games, but actually pretty substantial. But we have some RPGs, and we have some Metroidvania type stuff. So there are some games that maybe feel a little more epic, but they're all supposed to be meaty and full games. So a big part of that is just having specifications for a fictional console that we've agreed on certain rules that we're going to follow. A lot of people have referred to the NES, but actually we're following our own specs that are not quite NES, a little more advanced than the NES, to be honest. And that applies to the music and the number of colors and sprite sizes and so on. And so that gives like some cohesiveness to the games. In addition, there's going to be some thematic connections between the games. There's a chronology to them, so each game has a date. So some games are older. The older games are going to be a little more primitive than the later games. So you can kind of see the evolution of the company through the games themselves. There are a few ideas we tried early on that they weren't coming easily, so we threw those out. But I mean, with 50 game slots, you really kind of can throw everything at it. So.
And I guess from my perspective, I kind of wish there was a few more slots when I came on, because I joined a little later than like about 6 months into your development, right? And I came on and like I had the opportunity to fully design one of the 50 games, but like I've mostly been doing level design, so from my point of view, I kind of wanted to have more slots.
It's one of those things where you don't want to choose between your children, right? So like obviously we like to think all the games have something unique and different about them. A PAX favorite, though, has been the game Pin Golf. It's kind of a cross between pinball and golf and pachinko.
That seems to be a popular one, too. It's almost a River City ransom-style brawler. Content-wise, it's one of the less fleshed-out games we're offering at PAX. It's actually one that seems to really resonate with people, just because the feel of it is so good, and so it's something really familiar, and I think people kind of gravitate towards it. So we see that one played a lot as well.
It's going to be available on Steam for PC first. After that, who knows, maybe other platforms. It's been a little more than a year and a half, and we're expecting to finish next year. So, when it's all said and done, it'll be something between like 2 and 3 years to make all this.
We weren't actually able to get our hands on it, but we did see a bunch of its games played, and the variety is just jaw-dropping. It's a wild idea, and these maniacs look poised to actually pull this off. This could be a really big hit. Next, we found a really interesting tribute to 90s arcade brawlers, Way of the Passive Fist.
Way of the Passive Fist takes place on a distant planet called Zircon's 5, and it's a planet that orbits very close to a very volatile star. So it's constantly bombarded with these ultraviolet rays. And on this planet, being exhausted is a death sentence. So the main character, known as the Wanderer, has learned a fighting style where they fight by expending the least amount of energy possible. So the game is about being surrounded by maniacs, marauders, and raiders, letting them expend all their energy while you stay calm, stay focused, and be the last one left standing. I'm really pleased with the title because it describes the game so well. Yeah. But also, everyone's reaction is typically that they scratch their head for a moment, but once they're in the driver's seat, like once they're playing, they really take to it, and that's made us really happy this weekend. In terms of game structure, by default we offer a story mode, which has built-in checkpoints. So we want people to get through the whole thing eventually. We have alternate modes where you can challenge yourself to beat the game with limited lives, but really we want it to be a single-player experience, start to finish, that you can get through. It's not designed to be a quarter muncher. And with the technical combat, you can actually complete a level or the entire game never taking damage. Yeah. If you're paying attention and you're parrying and blocking everything that comes at you, you'll never get a scratch. And that's the idea behind it. So it's designed to be much bigger than those old brawlers. Yeah. So we're looking at something that's like 4 to 6 hours long, which typically I can beat Turtles in Time in like 34 minutes. Yeah. It's an awesome 34 minutes, but those games typically are designed to be like that because they were quarter munchers initially, like a lot of old classic games are. Yeah. Ours is a much more drawn-out experience. We have a story to tell. We want to take the player through a journey, and we're going to do that over like a nice length of time. Also, we have a lot of depth to the combat that we want the player to like learn as they play. You do have attacks you can perform. If you do a string of parries and build up a combo, you can earn one takedown move. And throughout the game, you'll learn takedown moves that'll eliminate one enemy or multiple enemies or all enemies as you progress through the game. But fundamentally, the combat is about the enemy will act first, and you react. Okay. Everything in the game is a reaction. Always step back, let the enemy make the first move, and then just you have an answer to it. So the game is going to be coming out on Xbox One, PS4, as well as Steam. We have a Steam page that's live now. You can wishlist the game, and we'll be launching early 2018. Once PAX is done, we're going to do the final polish pass and get it ready for release.
And is there going to be a DLC called Passive Aggression or anything like that?
We're focusing on creating a complete package for people, but depending on how the game does, we would love to be able to take this idea that we've turned on its head and maybe flip it back on its head, which I guess puts the original concept on its feet again.
He brought up Turtles in Time, and the aesthetic definitely invokes those cartoon-inspired arcade brawlers, but the concept is just so goddamn cool. It felt like a rhythm game, tapping into the same part of my brain that Crypt of the Necrodancer does. I was probably playing on the easiest setting, but my only worry is that the game moves a little too slow. Still, I really enjoyed what I played, and can't wait to dig deeper with the finished product. Next, we spotted a game that immediately appealed to our sensibilities.
First thing I noticed with Away was a cool kid and a nice skeleton embracing. So please explain to our viewers, a friendly skeleton in a video game? What's going on with that?
Be ready for the pitch. This is a feel-good FPS. That's it. You're playing as this little kid, and he's super useless. He doesn't know how to fight, he's not a hero, he will never be a hero. So you have to make some friends and find some to join his party and to have a powerful team. And you have tons of characters, well, tons, 15. Oh. Not tons, 15. Tons of characters you can talk with and try to recruit, and one of them is a skeleton. And actually, that's a she. Always I've been a huge fan of first-person games, but I'm not a huge fan of the realistic war stuff. So I'm trying to do something else with that. You have to picture like a very light-hearted adventure and action game, but in first person and with silly characters everywhere. It will be like 10 hours long because again we are a 2-people team, so don't expect like a Skyrim stuff. The goal of the game is not to save the world or something, it's only to find what your parents' job is, and they are doing something pretty mysterious for a living. There is a story, and we want you to have a sense of progression. So we have some tiny bits, element of roguelite. Some levels are randomized, and also at the end of each run you will keep your experience points, gold, friends, and so on, and unlock new skills. But you have to see the game more like a classic one in a way, and with some elements of roguelike on it.
And the art style is really striking. What was a big influence on that, or is this really just the art style that you just love to do?
I like to do some very round and colorful and joyful characters.
Yeah.
And also, maybe you can tell because of the bad English and the terrible accent, but I'm from France. And in France, we grew up with tons of vintage anime on TV when we were kids. And the very old Dragon Ball is something I really love. And I always wanted to do something in the same mood, kind of, mixed with some Adventure Time stuff and see what happens. Q1 of next year, and we will release the game on Nintendo Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and Steam. We've been on this for 1 year and a half, and we have like a few months to finish it, and hopefully it will be good. Make some friends, make a team, switch from one to another, and kick some butts, but in a joyful way.
The art style, in a way, is beautiful. The 2D sprite work is gorgeous against the vibrant 3D world. And there's actually some collectathon hooks in there too. But the melee combat was rough. I had trouble connecting with enemies without taking hits myself. If the combat is tightened up, this could be something really special. We found another first-person melee game called Spartan Fist.
Spartan Fist is a first-person puncher. It's a roguelike meets brawler. We're trying not to get too into either genre, but it's really those two things. Basically, you start at the top, you go through a dungeon. The dungeons are kind of like a first-person Zelda. You find the boss, you kill the boss, you go down the next level, so on and so forth. To the bottom, you win Spartan Fist, and you get back out. Maybe. I mean, the game can be beaten in 1 hour if you're a savant. Most people are going to play 5 minutes, die, it's permadeath, then they start again, a whole new level, whole new stages, whole new enemies, and keep trying. I didn't really want to do it story-driven, so we did a roguelike. So it's infinite replayability. It's kind of... Xenoclash 2 came out with a arena mode, which was fun but kind of dull. This is trying to take that in its own new direction. It's kind of half roguelike, half brawler. Most games like this, only 5% of people ever actually beat them. This is probably going to be about the same, but we're trying to make that loop of try, die, and punch again as satisfying and fun as possible. Since we wanted to do a roguelike style game where you are picking up weapons and picking different things, switching out fist types was a natural choice. And once we did that, we kind of needed to have independent inputs for left and right, and out of that grew kind of a fighting game combo system. A lot of fighters tend to turn into this combo memorization thing that a lot of players struggle with. This is a game that has to be casually friendly. Anyone can sit down and play with it. Easy to play, tough to master, that kind of thing. As far as why a lot of first-person melee games don't work, well, part of it's just that the animation is really hard. To get first-person, like whenever you're walking around in reality, you don't really do this, so this ends up not being realistic. So it's why we have floating fists. The floating fists let us do animations that make absolutely no sense whatsoever, but they feel good, or they look good, or they have really cool and fun reaction type things.
You did the music for it too. Like I said, this song is really works well, and I was feeling the vibe immediately.
Awesome. That is Nathan Madsen. He runs Madsen Studios.
Okay.
He's done music for us since the beginning. I ran into him at our previous gig, which was Lego Universe Playwell Studios, like a decade or whatever ago at this point. We've been working with each other ever since.
Do you think you're going to stick with like the roguelike single-player aspect, or so there's not going to be a kind of multiplayer?
So this is a game where multiplayer would be super fun, but it also doubles the scope. So if Spartan Fist 1 does well, Spartan Fist Fistier might have multiplayer, but it's mostly down to how well this one does. We want to make sure that the core roguelike, the core single-player game is super rock solid. That the punching feels great, the action feels great, the level design feels great. Once we got all of that, then we can start thinking about where we're going to take from there.
Blocky graphics, bright colors, great music, and very satisfying melee combat. Spartan Fist was impressive right away. My only worry is while the base game is solid, there isn't much enemy variety and there aren't many moves, but it's hard to know the depth of a roguelike in just a few minutes. Still, a very good first impression, looks extremely promising. Now, we're not super into dating sims, but a dating sim with murder? you have our attention.
Date or Die is a dating sim that is basically like The Bachelor meets Battle Royale. So the premise is that these 6 people wake up trapped in this mansion and are forced to compete on this reality TV show called Date or Die, where people who like lose are killed off until there's one person left standing. So you play as one of the contestants. You can date a lot of different people, including the villain if you're a freak like me, and there's a lot of different endings and branching paths and stuff. It's like mostly a story-based thing. I don't know what subtlety is at all, so I was just like, well, what if there was murder? It seems like a logical extension of that, so. The inspiration for this was actually Flavor of Love. Flavor Flav, tries to find a girlfriend for 3 seasons, and it's a train wreck. It's amazing. There were a lot of spin-offs from that too. There was the one that I remember really clearly as a closeted bi kid was A Shot at Love with Tila Tequila, which was horrible. But the twist of that show was that she was like, "Oh, I'm bisexual." How novel, how weird. And I just remember seeing all these people be like, "Oh man, this is so trashy and gross," and then watching it all the time anyway, and I was like, this feels bad. I didn't know I was bisexual yet, but I was like, this feels bad to me. And so I wanted to make something that's talking about how media portrays non-traditional romances and how it has a tendency to kind of other us and be like, ooh, look how novel and unique this is, when it's like, no, we just kind of want to be real people and exist. Yeah, there are 7 potential routes. 2 of them you have to unlock. You complete any of the other routes first, and then you can date the villain and the villain's robot bodyguard girl. Those are the 2 unlockable routes because their stories are a little bit darker, and I don't want people to accidentally stumble onto them on a first playthrough, because I think that would be a little bit bad. So, yeah, but it's each character has 2 different endings, so that's 14 endings. My original concept for the game that I had to scrap because it was actually too mean was that you were playing the role of the Bachelor type character, and so whoever you didn't give a rose to was killed off. But then I was like, this feels awful, to play and to write. This is literally too cruel for me to do. So now you're just one of the people trying to make the best of this situation. It's it's still bad, and you're still going to affect life or death choices, but it's not going to be or actually no, most of the time it's not directly your fault, but sometimes it definitely is. Also, thank God for Dream Daddy, because I've had so many more people coming up to this booth to be like, hey, this looks like Dream Daddy, can I check yours out now? I'm like, yes. So thank God for that game. But I also think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that game development tools are becoming a lot more accessible now. So, especially because visual novels are really easy to make. It's hard to make any game, but relatively the software for making visual novels, I can't program, but even I can still make a basic visual novel on my own, and a lot of people can too. So since it's becoming so much more available, there's a lot more stories coming out there, and people are getting more interested, and they're realizing oh, this doesn't have to just be weird porn games. I mean, weird porn games are also great, but sometimes you want more than that. So I think that we should be out early next year, I'm hoping, but the solo indie development is really hard. So I'm hoping early next year, but I feel really good about where we are. My partner, who is just does all the art for everything and helps me out with writing sometimes, is moving in with me very soon, so we can actually finish this, because we've been working on it for a really long time. And it's okay, I want this to be out now. I'm ready.
We downloaded the demo at home. The writing is sharp, but it was a little short. Still, this is one to watch. Next, Dunk Lords. Anyone smart enough to pick a name like Dunk Lords must be doing something right.
First question. The name Dunk Lords wasn't taken.
I hope not. I searched for it and stuff. Yeah, it seemed clear, and I was like, oh, it seems like an awesome name, so I went with it. Yeah, 2-on-2 arcade basketball gameplay, and blend it with Street Fighter type fighting game mechanics. And then there's also a little bit of an economy going on, and in between quarters, you're buying items to give you even more abilities and stuff. So there's a little bit of a MOBA going on, where you have these different characters that are leveling up almost throughout the game. And one thing I really like about that is the first quarter is, it's basketball with a couple extra things going on, and then when you get to the fourth quarter, it's really different, and everything's amped up. And I feel a lot of sports games, it's the same every quarter. And so to have it kind of escalate feels really good when you're playing. There's spots on the court that have dollar signs. If you make shots from those, you'll have extra money to spend. And then there's also other items. Oh, it's getting... There's items you can buy that help you make more money. And then you can also, if you're losing by more than 10 points, you get a pity payment. So that it's kind of like the blue shell. I remember having so much fun. Like, you go to your friends' houses for like sleepovers and stuff. It was like, we'd stay up playing Street Fighter. We'd stay up playing NBA Jam, like Mutant League football, like, which is kind of already blending that kind of weirdness with sports. Just having those fun experiences. And I felt like, oh man, you just go really over the top with it. Like, you just go nuts. So that was the goal, was to just make it like as crazy and as exciting as possible.
How many different characters are there?
We have 12 here at the show, but there'll be 16 for the final game.
Wow, okay.
And like 10 courts. We have like 7 of them here or something like that. So it's not online. So I mean, I'm like basically the sole programmer, so it's really hard to do like it's online multiplayer. I can't even test 2-player half the time. So it's local only, and then there's also a single-player story mode that is kind of it's spread out, so you're actually getting the items in a town. Like, you can go to stores and buy the items between games, and you're kind of going to the different courts and doing challenges to try to like level up your character.
So Dunk Lord's the RPG.
Yeah, it's like a little mini sports RPG. So I mean, hopefully that'll give people something to do with the game if they're by themselves. And the hope is you play through that, you learn the mechanics, you have fun, and then when your friends come over, you have this great party game to play. We're aiming for like mid-early next year, so maybe April-ish, we'll see. And it'll be launching on Steam and Xbox One, and then we'll see from there.
Another game we weren't able to get our hands on. There was a crowd every time we walked by, but the concept and name alone is enough to keep it on our wish list. We did spend some time outside of the indie mega booth, and one game we had to stand in line for was Secret of Mana. This remake had only just been announced, and this is one of the Super Nintendo's most classic games. I'm happy to say the new graphics are great, the controls, especially the movement, are smooth, and near as I could tell, the soundtrack was left completely intact, so this looks like it's going to be a great remake, and it's actually coming out pretty soon. We played a bunch of other games around PAX, but never as much as we wished we had, and we weren't able to get them all on the camera. So many games, so little time, you know how it goes. So please, share in the comments below any awesome games you think people, not just us, anyone, should be checking out. Tell us your favorite game from PAX. And if you're not supporting Stop Skeletons from Fighting on Patreon like all of these wonderful people, consider pledging a couple of bucks. It makes a huge difference, plus you get early access to videos and other behind-the-scenes content. Check out our PAX video from last year, or hey, roll the dice and check out our random video from us. For Grace Kramer and Derek Alexander, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next month for Halloween.